Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today I'll be showing you how I made these 3 swimsuits. So the first one is this purple one, and I decided to use the top from the Bear Girl dress, and I found an underwear pattern from Creative Mom, so go check out her channel after you've watched my video. Anyway, so I've cut out my pattern pieces, so I am using a purple stretch fabric for this one, especially for the underwear, or in this case the swimsuit bottoms. It is really important to have a stretch. I'm going to start on hemming the leg curve of the swimsuit bottoms. So I'm just doing this, folding over a little bit and pinning that in place. Oh my god, just pin it in place, it saves so much frustrations, and use as many pins as needed. Just take them out and don't sew over them. Anyway, sorry. I'm also hemming the front and the back of these underwear. And this is what we're looking like when it's fully hemmed, and honestly the only bit that we still have to do is, of course, cut those threads. We don't want threads. And we're just gonna close up the sides, and well, that's basically your underwear or swimsuit done. So this is just a nice, easy, quick little something to make for your smart doll. It is a lot of fun, but just keep in mind to have a stretch fabric. I'll show you later on what I did when I didn't have a stretch fabric, but for now, if you want to follow these simple steps, stretch fabric. Alright, and let's continue by sewing the top. So I'm just hemming the top and the bottom of the top. Okay, sorry. So I'm just hemming these, just keeping in mind to fold down enough so I can thread an elastic through. So I'm going to be sewing or threading the elastic on both the top and the bottom of this shirt. So I'm just sewing here, keeping in mind to take the pins out on time, and then going really carefully. This is sped up. And this is what it looks like once you've sewn both of them. So the next part is to actually thread the elastic. So this was a little bit more difficult than I thought, since I had already cut the elastic. So a little tip from me after doing this: cut your elastic after you've threaded through. And these little clips that I used are actually really handy. So if you've got anything of the sort, like anything similar you can use, just keep it clipped in place. Or you can use a flat elastic if you've got one that is narrow enough. I didn't have an elastic that was narrow enough, so this little round one had to work for me. It did work. I think I should have made it a little bit tighter, but it was really hard to gauge, plus I'd already cut it, so I just left it how it was. And just sewing this in place, just go back and forth several times on the ends, just to make sure that it is secured nicely. And just repeating this on all 4 sides there. And this is what we're looking like. So I am just lining up the center there, from making sure the top is with the top and the bottom is with the top. If that still makes sense, I'm sorry if it doesn't. But just lining those 2 up and sewing that in place. Alright, let's finish this top off. So I've just taken a rectangle of the same fabric, hemming the top and the bottom, again making sure it's the same width as the sides that I previously got on my front bit. And all I get to do now is attach the front to the back pieces, and I'm making this into a tube. So no closure or anything, since it's a stretch fabric. And it is such a perfect fit, and I love this. I did add a little tiny fun detail on the front of her top. It is actually a button, but it gave it such a cute finish, and she is just enjoying her relaxing time on her cruise. Alright, let's continue with the next swimsuit, or bikini in this case. This beautiful black and white one. So this swimsuit or bikini is not actually made from a stretch fabric, so I've gone ahead and done this a little bit differently. So for the top, I have these rectangles, which I will give the measurements for down below in the description box. So if you want to make it, go ahead, the measurements are below. So I've gone ahead, and on the squares, or like the wide rectangle squares, I've decided to scrunch up the top and the bottom. And just a little side note, I do actually recommend you overlock or zigzag stitch the edges. Well, for me, this was quite a fraying fabric. I completely forgot about it. I was just too excited to do this. And also fold in the ends. But just forgetting that for a moment, I've gone ahead. Here you can see me folding in the ends. It works just as well folding it in afterwards. But I was just a little bit, I should have zigzagged. Okay, going to the ironing station. We're just going to do some hemming. A favorite part, isn't it, hemming? I hate it, honestly. Okay, anyway, so I've just gone ahead and folded this into threes. So on both the little rectangle and the long rectangle, we're going to be folding this into threes. And don't forget to iron in those little corners. This just gives it a nice and neat finish. So this little one that you can see here is actually used for the front, and then not the front, it is for the neckline, and then the long one is used for the bottom and all the way around, just like that. So this is how our top will look like. So let's construct it. So I am just putting some gathering from what I gathered would be the top. So I'm just putting this, making sure my little seam line will be pointed towards the inside of her neck, just to make sure it's nice and neat. And I'm just taking my time pinning this in place and just making sure all the little edges are hidden. And repeating this on the other side. So basically you'll just have a strip with two fluffy little bits on each end. Aren't my instructions very clear? You love it. Oh, no, you don't. Okay. Anyway, now it's time for the long strip. So I've sewn this in place, the little shorter piece, and this is what it looks like now. I found the center of the long strip, and honestly, you can make the long strip as long as you want, as long as you can tie it in the back. You can also use a snap button in the back if you want to make it shorter. It's up to you. But I've just found the middle, pinned on one side, and then lined up the other side. And just making sure all the threads are cut short or hidden inside, because you don't want to be seeing any of those. We want a nice clean finish. At least I do. So I'm just taking my time, unpinning and gently repinning this, making sure that like the folded over lines up perfectly. I don't want to have to sew this twice. I mean, I just don't want to do the extra work. So yeah, making sure it is pinned through on both sides so I can sew this all at once. And then just lining up the rest as you sew. That's the easy bit. And here we go. So I'm just lining up the foot with the open edge as close as possible and just going for it. Go to town. Sew it as you want. You can also, if you want to, sew the bottom so you have like a fun, neat line on both sides. I don't do that just because I like the look of like a slightly poof at the bottom. It just gives it a nice little finish. Like it's not poofy, but it's not super flat either. I mean, the ironing flattened it out anyway. And don't forget to sew those end bits because we want a nice neat finish, like I mentioned. And this is what it looks like. Your top is done. This just goes over her head and ties in the back. And this is actually the point that I really realized I should have overlocked it, but oh well, it's fun. And probably most of you don't have an overlocker, so now you can see what I do if I don't have one. I ignore life. I mean, never mind. Let's continue with the bottoms. So the bottoms are going to be sewn basically the same as the purple ones, except that now we're going to be sewing the top, but we're going to be adding some ribbons. And this is because this doesn't have a stretch fabric. So if we close up the sides now, well, you're not going to be able to get it on her. So you can also make it bigger if you want to, but this actually gives it such a cute look, and I'm in love with this one. This is my favorite of all. So I'm just lining these up, making sure they're all the same length, and then putting them in there. And don't forget to finish sewing the top and the bottom there. And once they're done, you can just tie them on. And Izzy is ready for another day of vacation in her brand new bikini. And let's continue on with the next swimsuit design, a one-piece swimsuit. Yay! So this was a lot of fun to make. I really like the purple one, so I adapted this from there but made it into a one-piece. And for mine, I did find it was a little bit low on her, so I did lengthen the pattern a little bit. So if you make it, I haven't tested the pattern again, so maybe check it, but it should be fine. Honestly, my patterns are just a little bit of winging it. But these are the pattern pieces I came up with. Again, that Bear Girl just to top it, and then I just made this one-piece swimsuit. So what we're going to be doing first is sew the back, the center back. So I'm just lining this up, my pattern piece, to find where the stand gap needs to be. This is really important, don't forget it, or otherwise you can't use the stand for your smart doll. Anyway, I mean, you can work around that too. I don't know how, but maybe just let her balance. I'm getting pretty good at balancing her without the stand. Okay, here we go. So I finished sewing the back here. You can flatten out this center seam. It doesn't matter too much as long as you can get access to the stand. And just like the purple swimsuit, we're going to be hemming the top here. And instead of the purple one where we also have elastic on the bottom, it is just elastic on the top. So for now, we're just doing the top one and sewing that in and adding the elastic. Once the elastic is in there, just like the purple one, we're going to be sewing the sides closed just to make sure the elastic stays in place where it needs to be. Okay, so now we've done that on both pieces, we need to do something else. We actually need to figure out what we're gonna do. So I've decided to continue by sewing the center front closed first, because that's just gonna make life a little bit easier. And now that we have this with a bottom bit that is a bit too big, we're going to adjust our settings. So I'm just making my stitch length really long to make a gathering stitch. Yep, we're going to be gathering the bottom. So we're just going to go in there and just start sewing the full length of it, making sure the center is right as you want it to be, and just pull on those threads. So this is the whole gathering process, which apparently I do off camera because I can't stay in frame for the life of me. But this is what we're looking like, and it's looking pretty good. I'm really happy with it. And hey, don't tell me, but this kind of reminds me of shells, like a shell bra. Like, doesn't it remind you of that when it's just laying there? No? Okay. Well, it did me. Okay. So I'm just finding the center of the swimsuit with my pin method because it makes life easier. And I'm just lining up the center and pinning this in place. So take your time, gather some more or take some gathers out just to make sure it is laying in the right position. And once you've done that, you just get to go to town and sew this in place again. I mean, that seems to be our whole process, pinning and sewing. Isn't that sewing though? Okay, sorry. And yay, it's starting to look like an actual swimsuit. Booyah! This makes me very happy to see this coming together. Okay, now, hold up. We are not going to sew this inner leg seam yet. I am going to do this on camera now, but honestly, don't. Just sew the little crotch bit first, and then sew the leg seams in one go. Like now you're doing the front separately to the back, and you need to actually make sure that they're even because you need to attach them. So don't. I mean, look at this. Just attach that crotch seam first. This is the moment that I realized, like, why did I do it this stupid way? So learn from my mistakes. Do as I say, not as I do. As you hear a lot from me. Okay, anyway, sewing your inner crotch seam, hemming your legs. Great, great stuff. Once you've done that, you get to close up your sides, making sure they are lined up fully, and that's basically done. You are done. Once you've sewn this in place, that's it. And now your beautiful girl and my Izzy has another swimsuit. So just a little note, you can add some straps if that is what you want. I don't want any straps, so mine is just a beautiful strapless top that is a little bit low on her, but I love it and it's really cute, so I'm happy. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps my channel out. Leave a comment down below on any ideas or questions you may have, and I will happily answer those. In the meantime, tell me, which of these three was your favorite? See you all next time. Bye!